Showtime's new miniseries, George and Tammy, is garnering praise for Jessica Chastain's performance, but is there any more to that? Now that the Banshees of Inisherin is on HBO Max, is it worth your time? We've watched it. We finally got our hands on it. More to come.
Alabama take projection.
Happy holidays to you all. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. It's Taking It Down, a podcast where we cordially unpack TV and film for our progressive, busy Alabama people. With so much to stream, we let you know what to watch, where to watch it. I'm Blaine Duncan, one of the hosts. Taking It Down exists because if I was alone, I would still find myself thinking through and maybe even talking through why I like what I like and why I dislike what I dislike when it comes to TV, movies, books, music. I have an English degree and a teacher's mind that's always on, it seems. So I try to offer insight worthy of your time. My ideas are not the only set of viewpoints here. With me every week is Adam Morrow, who's an erudite musician with a penchant for fine literature. Donovan Reinwald will join us, a media specialist with encyclopedic knowledge on film and more, as well as Natalie Morrow, the first person to ask about fantasy, sci-fi, comics, trashy, reality TV, and Beyonce. From us, you're going to get the obvious and the obscure. Here they are, though. First, this guy's always within 6 feet of a guitar. It's Adam Morrow.
That's true.
Next up, if you need an Irish curse word, Donovan Reinwald to give it to you.
Thanks for having me, Blaine.
Oh, what a missed opportunity for him to lean in and say, "Feckin' great to be here, Blaine."
Feckin' great to be here, Blaine.
Last but not least, she can wrap a present. My question is, can she fold a fitted sheet? It's Natalie Morrow.
I just don't see the point in all that.
We are a day later than usual. A day later and a little later in the evening even. If you're listening on a Wednesday or a Thursday morning even, that's what's happened. We just pushed it a day late for scheduling reasons. But here we are. Bowl games, anyone?
I watched Liberty lose last night. It was glorious. I mean, I'm always going to root against Liberty. I went there once and it was like the rally at Nuremberg.
Why did you go to Liberty?
My wife's brother graduated from Liberty.
Right.
And I was there for the graduation, and they had, of all people, like this was before Trump had kind of burst onto the scene, so it was still like the Ted Cruz Republicans were around. So they had a Bobby Jindal commencement speaker. It was all in good fun, I assure you.
I realize none of my cohorts here have seen the Showtime miniseries George and Tammy, but I do want to bring it up. It's an odd choice because not only have you not seen it, but that does not put us at any kind of remove, believe it or not, because Adam, you as a musician have a friend in this series, right?
Yeah, you'll have to fill me in on how much he's actually in it as it goes along. He plays bass in the band. You know, I'm doing air quotes here. He plays bass, and I'm sure he's a capable bass player. I knew him from, he opened for John on the road. Has a lovely, lovely voice. Logan Ledger. Good dude.
No, he's on screen quite a bit because there's so many live band shots of George performing and Tammy coming in to perform with him. And if I'm not mistaken, it was I think he and Walton Goggins were carrying Michael Shannon down a hallway because he was so drunk as George Jones. And I think that was Logan on one side holding him up.
Does he speak? Or is he always just physically doing stuff?
He's just, I think, just physically doing stuff. If I'm not mistaken, he's on the tour bus a lot in the background while they're rolling dice. He's smoking cigarettes.
Being a cool guy.
Hasn't the Golden Globes announced that Jessica Chastain's nominated for her portrayal of Tammy Wynette in this show?
Let's look it up real quick.
That's our go-to guy right there. Honestly, I like the Golden Globes a little better than the Oscars because they drink at the Golden Globes and they seem to party. It's just it's a more fun watch.
Nominations for the 80th Golden Globes have been announced. Jessica Chastain for George and Tammy.
Yeah.
Blaine, are you actually a George Jones fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
And Tammy Wynette, too?
To a degree, yeah. Her music wasn't as well known to me. Although, if you're a country music fan, you know 5 or 6 Tammy Wynette songs just from being a country music fan. When I was like between 16 and 24 and hanging out at some questionable places, I really liked George Jones a lot then.
He fits in with the seedy atmosphere.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you hear him there and it's just good. He's good. One of the best. When you close your eyes and picture honky tonk, we never called it that. That was a foreign phrase to us. But if you close your eyes and picture honky tonk, these are the kinds of places where I was frequenting. But the show itself, it's hard to, I think, capture George Jones as far as looks and his personality. And Michael Shannon is he can play things kind of on the downward slope of, and I think George might have had a much more sillier sense of humor than what's being seen on screen. But everything else is really good. It's immaculate. You feel like you're in the 60s.
The thing that intrigues me the most about it is honestly Michael Shannon playing George Jones, just because I think and Jessica Chastain is awesome too, but I think Michael Shannon is really cool. And did you ever watch The Little Drummer Girl?
No.
He plays an Israeli operative in that one, and it's just, he shines the whole series. If I ever get around to watching this, it'll probably be Mr. Shannon's fault.
I've watched a lot of his work, partly by choice.
He's in a lot of stuff, and he's weird.
He's good, too, I think.
Good.
He's got his own way of being good, and like I was talking about, it's kind of on the downside, on the darker, depressed, more side, and that's going to fit well when story of Jones becomes way more involved with drinking and pills, and if they go that route. And it's produced and based on the book by his and Tammy Wynette's daughter. It's a good show so far, as far as a little fast-paced. You have to put your expectations and your ideas about reality on hold here and there. But I haven't been enjoying it. One thing that the show did reveal to me is that Tammy Wynette was forced to go to electroshock therapy because she left her husband. She was debating leaving him, kind of having a nervous breakdown kind of thing, and she was 4 months pregnant and was forced to do electroshock therapy.
That's the kind of detail that just sticks with you, huh?
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it is.
It's an interesting show. I look forward to finishing it because there are certain things I didn't know about them that are certainly being revealed. Well, let's get to what we came here for, which is the Banshees of Inisherin. It's a 2022 film written and directed by Michael McDonagh. It's now streaming on HBO Max, so we finally got our hands on it. I think it was released in late September or October, theatrically.
Late October, yeah.
Real broad. It's a tale of two friends who abruptly end their relationship with one another off the shore of Ireland in this fictional island. Those two friends are played by Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. We'll stick with broad strokes here, and just for our listeners, should they watch it?
Yes. Did I like it? Absolutely, yes. I'll be succinct. That's very...
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if we're going to get into his other work, but, I'm a In Bruges enthusiast. I think that's one of my favorite movies ever. I was, the small town theater, the small town AMC, sometimes will get a film like this, and I was almost daily hitting refresh on the Showtimes to see if it would come, and it never did. So I was ecstatic that it was on HBO, and we can get into the differences in this and his other work. This one I thought was out and out darker, maybe, than In Bruges, even though In Bruges is obviously brutal and plenty dark, but this one lived in it a bit more.
Michael McDonagh did the movie In Bruges, directed that one. Also wrote and directed 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and maybe another film or two that I'm
7 Psychopaths, and
That's
he has
the
a
one.
short film called Six Shooter with Brendan Gleeson that you can watch on YouTube.
There you go. So I bet we do end up referencing his other work, especially those two, In Bruges and 3 Billboards.
I would like to miss the forest for the trees for a second and just say that this movie was feckin' hilarious.
Yeah.
It is dark and it's about bigger themes, but just as like a comedy, it works so well. All the performances are great. The writing is great. 2 thumbs up for me. Big. This is a late contender for movie of the year for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, I agree with these guys. I think that it was hilarious, it was deranged, and it was heartbreaking, which are like the 3 core emotions. So, it was great. Would recommend to anybody. Those 2 actors together, I told Adam we were watching, I was like, do you think they're actually buddies in real life? Because their chemistry, like if they see each other on the call sheet, they're like, yes, I get to work with my best friend today. Like they just have the best chemistry, whether they're supposed to be buddies or not in the film. I buy it, not to get into it, but it was so good.
High praise all around.
Glenn Kenny on RogerEbert.com referred to them as our Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
Which I totally see.
I thought that was you and RogerEbert.com. Here he goes again with that.
I love it, right?
This movie had a lot more. It had all of the Michael McDonagh elements, I felt, but at a certain depth and deeper ambiguity. Who in here has seen Three Billboards, by the way?
So I have not.
Did we all whiff on that? This was.
Yeah, we all whiffed on it.
I was telling y'all in the group text that was during a time of heavy touring where movies would come out and I would come back and either they'd be out of the theater or everybody had already seen it and didn't want to go with me. I tried to catch up. It's not on streaming right now. It's only for rent. So, bummer.
I have not watched Three Billboards or Seven Psychopaths. So of his movies, I've only seen the short film he did, In Bruges and Banshees. And then I've read most of his plays, not his most recent one. I think I've read all of his plays up to and including The Pillow Man.
Do his plays read like the films? Because that's the thing with his work that I'm familiar with. Obviously, I'm missing Three Billboards, but it does present, these kind of tightly constructed set pieces almost and small cast. And obviously in Bruges, they're running around a bigger city, but it could be on the stage. Banshees could certainly be on the stage. How do they read?
Especially his trilogy, which starts with The Beauty Queen of Linain, and I think I'm going to forget it's A Skull in Connemara, and is it The Lonesome West, are very much like his movies in that they're compact, there's only a few characters in the scene, and it's super dialogue driven. So it's just The Beauty Queen of Linain is this woman who lives with her, older mother, and they kind of hate each other. It's just the two of them kind of dragging each other down.
Is it funny?
It is funny. He's got a great play called, which I guess gets revived every couple years, The Lieutenant of Inishmore, which is about a splinter group of the IRA. So it's a splinter group of one guy. And he finds out that his cat, Wee Thomas, has been killed. And he comes back into town to exact his revenge for the death of Wee Thomas. It's short, it's hilarious, it's deranged, as Natalie would put it. And a cat blows up on stage.
Wee Thomas?
Wee Thomas is already dead.
Oh, so not Wee Thomas blows up on stage.
Not
okay,
Wee
good.
It's a heavy body count for the cats in this production.
Yeah. He's got a bit where he starts riffing on, the lieutenant starts riffing on what Wee Thomas wanted. He's like, he just wanted a free Ireland for all the little kitties. And then the most recent play of his that I've read, The Pillow Man, is weirder because it kind of takes place in this totalitarian state, and the policemen have showed up to question this guy who writes stories because they think that his older or his younger and kind of more mentally slow brother has been acting out these horrific stories that this guy writes. Very weird and strange, and kind of about the relationship that art has in manifesting things or making them come about. So he's kind of all over the place.
That's a staple of McDonagh's work, is having a guy who's mentally slower, or the town realizes he's not as smart. Maybe he's just a dullard. That seems to appear in every one of the three I've seen.
And I think McDonagh, at least in his plays and in the movies that I've seen, does a good job of kind of making them more like the innocent, more kind of like it's Barry, what's his face, Keegan, in the Banshees of Inisherin, and there's sort of an innocence to him. In Bruges, I would say the dullard character is a little bit of Colin Farrell's character, and there's an innocence in him too. There's just an innocence to him. I don't know how else to put that. Which
is so different than what he does in Three Billboards, because he makes the innocent, he's not innocent, I should say, the town idiot be also racist and sometimes cruel, quite cruel, which you don't see nearly as much in the other two that I've seen.
If you like good dialogue, you will like Martin McDonagh. He's such, it's so there's action and the films look great. Banshees of Inisherin is beautiful. In Bruges is beautiful. It has a beautiful, it makes you want to go visit Bruges, but they're so character and dialogue driven. If that gets you out of bed in the morning, these are for you.
Is it a strictly Irish thing to repeat what someone says back to you? In question form, I guess.
Isn't that what they teach in like active listening classes, though?
Is it what they teach in active listening classes?
Yeah, it's an active listening technique. Repeat it back.
Have we been rowing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's take a quick break and we're going to come back, and after the break, we'll do spoilers for Banshees. Okay, we're back, and we're going to dive into spoilers, try to unpack some of this movie. There's a lot to say about it. I don't know if I've got a grasp on all of it, but luckily I've got you three. Where do we start? We've got Podrick, almost that A
It's
is
like Podrick, isn't
almost that A is almost an O. That's Colin Farrell's character, and at the beginning of the movie, his friend Colm, played by Gleason, decides, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. We don't see anything happen. His decision's been made off screen. They tend to go drink a pint or two at the pub. They're just drinking buddies and maybe even just solid friends. But Colm's decided, not that Colin Farrell's character's done anything, he just doesn't want to be around him anymore. He wants to play more fiddle. He wants to write songs. He wants to contemplate deeper things, and his friend's not that deep. That's your plot, really. And then you have a couple of characters who sort of are around when this happens, or they push the plot along, specifically the great performance by Podrick's sister, played by Carrie Condon. She's somewhat of a regular for Michael McDonagh, too. She's so great in this. And she plays the rather intelligent sister. The juxtaposition there being Podrick's not that bright, but she is well-read and can carry on a conversation and intimidates some of the island people because of her smarts. So take it from there. It's so much to unpack, and even though that didn't sound like a lot, there's just little hints of things you're supposed to pick up on, I think. And
I like what's her face, the woman who plays Siobhan's character in this, because she kind of stands apart from and aside all the little petty islands. She's got one bit where she says, "You're all fucking boring."
Mm-hmm. Specifically the men she's saying there,
men,
by the way.
Yes. It's kind of an interesting counterpoint or commentary on the movie, because Colum's character is doing what he does for art, for deeper things, for more noble things, because he wants to be remembered in 100 years. And she's kind of over here saying that you're just as bad as my dullard brother. You're all boring in your feuds, and you're making friends with the policeman and all the stuff that he does throughout the movie. Even the cutting off of his fingers is boring, because it's all locked in to this little island where nothing's ever going to change.
The obvious thing that a lot of people have taken away, it feels obvious, is that it's supposed to be, in a lot of people's minds, an allegory for the Irish Civil War. Mm-hmm. There's the explosions that happen across the channel, whatever that body of water would be called. But it's funny to have something that's the meta-narrative in a lot of works, which is what affects the act of creation and what it means to write or to compose or to do all those things, be the forefront. It's almost like it's working on three levels, where you have that and they tell you flat out that that's what the movie's about, that's what the conflict is about. Then you have the Irish Civil War that you're supposed to kind of infer these things from, and then the third layer gets back to that debate about what's important. Is it being a decent person, or is it keeping an eye on your desire to do things that quote unquote matter? It's a funny trick that he does, where he flat out tells you these things, but they still stick with you.
You hit something on the head there too, Adam. The movie asks us, what does it mean to be nice?
Yeah.
And Amy, what does it mean to be nice? And does niceness ever cover up something darker? There's the bit when he's in confession, where Cullum is in confession, and the priest says, "And you haven't been talking to Padrick," and he says, "Is that a sin, Father?" And he goes, "No, but it's not very nice."
Yeah, the levels of, and even Cullum it's implied that he's traveled quite a bit and is more a man of the world and has come to the island to get away from it, but is still participating in things like confession. That's still they all go to church every Sunday. They've been punching each other in the face the night before, but they're all in the same church building, so they're kind of still stuck together. It gets to feel very claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting to see how Pedrick, whoever, he kind of goes through the 5 stages of grief, but maybe not in the right order. And I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if you've ever like considered or had to deal with losing somebody, but them still being around and you still having to see them. Like these are like, if you've ever thought about how your reaction to that might be, I thought that the way that this was acted and written, it felt like kind of an accurate, like you would try to accept it and be a good person about it, but also you're hurt and you're angry and you're confused. I just thought it was done really well of kind of portraying that. It kind of, you could look at it surface level and think, oh, this guy's just a little bit crazy and it's silly. But if you really think about it, it's like this feels accurate in a way. And yeah, maybe I might burn somebody's house down. You know, maybe that's the answer to that kind of grief and loss. But I don't know. It struck a chord for me in that way.
It's a breakup story. And
Yeah, I told my wife it's a better breakup album than anything Taylor Swift's written.
100%.
yeah, I was going to say that you guys are breaking up now.
Yes, we're done.
On that, it's funny to see male friendship so investigated. I don't know, I feel like that's not like an off-discussed thing where you have maybe stories where people are complete opposites and are forced together like a, buddy cop kind of drama or whatever, but like to have people who are friends, they separate and the whole island is weighing in on who should do what. The rest of the island with voices outside of the 2 female characters are dudes trying to understand dude emotions. I don't know. It doesn't seem like something that's talked about a lot.
Yeah, weirdly, because you don't usually have this level of like friendship breakup without there being romantic feelings attached. And maybe there are in what I'm about to reference, but the movie that I kept thinking is interested in male friendships to this level is actually the Lord of the Rings movies for Frodo and Sam. And I think some people might say that there's romantic attraction there, but it seems like just the nature of friendship is kind of interesting and being looked at in a way that this movie is also really interested in these 2 men and how they relate to each other.
And they do everything they do in a very dude-like way, like
Yes.
the only way Nicole can get his point across is just complete brutality. He can't like sit down and have the conversation. I mean, he eventually makes his feelings known. Then Podrick can't eloquently, well, that gets into maybe him being the number 2 dullard on the island. He can't eloquently express himself until he has that great monologue while he's whiskey drunk at the bar.
Yes,
At the pub.
which is when Colin likes him best.
Yeah, which he's already noted.
The most interesting.
He's already noted that he's the most interesting when he's drunk. Yeah.
Yes.
But it takes
Right.
these extreme circumstances to have them express themselves. I mean, I'm sure therapists the world around are like, yeah, of course, dudes are idiots.
Yeah, and when you view it through the lens of a civil war, it's so deep that Calm breakup happens, and in order for Calm to continue the breakup, he injures himself.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a depth here that's, I don't know if I'll ever get to the bottom of for this one. It's so good, and I appreciate the layers and how I think all 4 of us kind of viewed it a little differently. I really thought of those first 45 minutes and maybe the whole thing as a bit of a rumination on social media. I need to be doing something way more productive, and you're just an idiot with useless shit. I was like, Jesus, that's Twitter.
You were convicted. You had a come to Jesus moment with this movie.
I did go to confession late last night. Can I ask you guys about a couple of specific things and just get opinions, because I love it, but I'm a little baffled.
I think that's a good place to be.
Okay, yeah, me too. It's that kind of film, and I'm not so sure I won't go back and bump it up in my Letterboxd rating, because the more I try to think about it, the better I like it. What's up with the old lady, especially when she's on the cliff at the end and Podrick's sister's waving goodbye. She's going to the mainland to become a librarian. Despite the civil war that's happening, she waves goodbye. Podrick's waving goodbye on the cliff. Beautiful shot. But in the distance, unfocused, is the old lady. And they never focus. McDonagh makes the choice not to focus on her at all. And Podrick walks away, but you can still see her. That moment felt like I was supposed to really pay attention and think about it And then I started thinking about her as a whole.
Choosing to go unfocused there, I thought there are three characters that cross your mind who, obviously Podrick is in the frame, but he's standing on a cliff face, and a lot has gone wrong for him recently. So you're like, hey, they intentionally show how close he is to the edge of that cliff. There's also Colm, could potentially be the blurry figure. Dominic could also be the person just out of, because he's not had a great go of it as well. So introducing that idea of, suicide is brought up fairly early on when the cop says that they've pulled somebody from the lake. So, and the priest asking, how are you doing with how does he doesn't say depression, he says despair. How are you doing with the despair? And Colm challenges Siobhan and says, I know that you're right there with me. The way that they speak, not to get off topic, but the way that they speak to each other is very interesting to me, because it's like recognizes like, right, in this island of folks content with what they have. They're the two people looking maybe at the bigger picture and are saddened by what they find there. It being the witch, that's an interesting, I don't know. And she just kind of haunts the whole movie, doesn't she?
She is sort of like, that's how I thought of her, haunting. She's sort of like death and despair. Made flesh. She brings portents of doom. She's there walking the lanes.
You said portents. What does that mean?
So she predicts death.
I was repeating Podrick where he said portents.
Yeah.
Ensconced. She's ensconced in the island. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what ensconced means, but...
You ever just think she's out for a walk? Like maybe there's nothing to read into it. Yeah, why in films it's like, oh, that person's in scene, it must mean something. It probably does, but maybe she's just out for a walk. It's a lovely day on the cliffs.
She's there as a character. She's written into it to do something, even if it's just break the news that there's bad shit coming, which she does that one time. She's pretty spooky looking, though.
It's not her fault. It's just mean, she's spooky.
Well,
she is spooky.
She is spooky. I think costume design is gets the credit for that, even if it's not her herself.
They have the recurring joke that everyone jumps behind a wall rather than meet
but that's with any old person. Like, don't we all do that? Like, old lady comes walking out. Like, our neighbors, we used to have old neighbors. We would hide from them.
Your neighbors listen to this podcast, by the way.
They don't.
Barry Keoghan, though, I just want to credit his performance. I haven't seen him do a performance quite like this. It's really good.
Yeah.
Where he plays sort of the simple guy you feel sad for because he's lonely.
He sets up Colin Farrell for a great line when he's like, I don't like talking about this stuff. What stuff? Sisters with no clothes on and such.
That was because I thought you were going to mention my favorite line, which was Colin Farrell saying, yeah, and I'll go to my grave, hating that I saw your dad naked or whatever the line was. Kudos to the miniature donkey.
Jenny.
I now want a miniature donkey really badly.
This movie,
Jenny.
It loved its animals, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It was like the opposite of a Wes Anderson movie where, like, Wes Anderson sometimes seems like he doesn't really care about animals. Something horrific kind of happens to them, and it's a comedy. Here, Jenny's death is like almost like a person died.
Yeah.
But even that, like, it was done. Like, her death is kind of a funny death on paper, but they were able to do it in a way it's like it wasn't funny at all. Like, it was like this like trigger point,
Podrick's line when Jenny wants to come in and Siobhan's, no, he can't come in. He says desperately, she just wants some company. It's like, oh, yes. He's saying a lot right now.
I'm not putting my donkey outside when I'm feckin' sad.
That might be a go-to line for the rest of my life.
I think that was like the line of the movie for me because it is sad. And,
yes,
and there's the bit where he's writing his letter back to his sister and he pretends that Jenny's still alive.
Yeah.
That was kind of heartbreaking.
He has made his choice, because he did have a choice to leave to improve his situation, and by pretending that she's still alive, he's kind of committing to, both sides of the argument, the feud, have dug in at times when it wasn't necessary to dig in and just made things worse, and that's him doubling down to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The reverberations of Jenny's death was certainly sad, but I did not. It's one of the few animal deaths in a movie that I didn't find immediately sad. Like, I just knew she was, I guess because I knew she was going to die. Like, as soon as he turned the corner and she was laying down, I thought, oh, okay, so here's where it happens. And I guess because she wasn't in the act of dying, like, he just turned the corner and she was dead. The sadness of it didn't quite hit until, like you're talking about, he chooses to write about her like she's still alive and other things. Man, this movie explored a lot, and I thought handled it all pretty well. What's the usefulness or good of art? Loneliness, tolerance, the idiocy of war or conflict I found to be interesting. The safety and the damage of being so insular.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I thought all of it was well done. Really good movie. I think it's McDonagh's best. I think he comes off of 3 Billboards looking great. You know, he called some flack with 3 Billboards. It got love and then it got the backlash, right?
Yes.
This, and I know you guys haven't seen it, but this one was a upswing for him, if not maybe his best movie of the 3 I've seen. Yeah, I think that's what we got for the Banshees. Really liked it. Go watch it. It's a little slow. I think that I'll throw a gripe. I did find it to be slow.
Interesting. I didn't find it slow at all. I thought it was perfectly paced.
Of course, I watched it in weird conditions.
Yeah.
We won't get into my home life.
It's a very serious movie, but it's a very, very funny movie at the same time.
Yeah, that's a McDonagh hallmark right there.
Also, just a beautiful movie.
Yeah, beautiful.
Which I know we
Wow.
touched on, but shout it out again. I mean, from the opening shots of flying over the island and seeing all the fields partitioned off by those stone walls, and everybody's walking around the whole time, and, you know, waves crashing.
That final shot of that low-hanging cloud over the cliff.
Incredible.
That's frame-worthy, yeah. Thanks for listening to us, folks. We hope you enjoyed our little analysis and breakdown and discussion of the movie. We're done for this week, but there's more. You can find us at Taking It Down Pod. That's on Twitter for as long as it's going to last, and Instagram. The Alabama Take itself is now on Mastodon and Post.news. You can find us there or any other social media sites that you can imagine except for TikTok. That's dangerous. Say hello when you do find us. Talk to you all next week where we'll talk about the year that was in 2022.